Well, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, or evening. Trevor the Aviator here, and today I am very excited about what is going to be happening. So, it is a very nice day outside here in Chicago, which is perfect for how today is going to be because today I am going to be giving you guys another trip report, but this is going to be unlike any other trip that I have done. So, if you guys have been paying attention to my channel, you guys have noticed that I have done a lot of trips within the United States. And for this trip in particular, I am actually going to be going outside of the United States. With this trip happening, I am going to be spending some time over in Europe, and today I am going to be taking British Airways on the 787 Dreamliner from here in Chicago to London Heathrow, where I will be arriving in the early morning the next day. I am very excited for this trip, and this is another level in terms of traveling for me compared to the previous trips that I have done. So let's get finished packing up, and I'll see you guys as I get ready to head to the airport here very shortly. So currently I am in the process of finishing packing up, so I actually am still charging a couple of things at the moment because I want to make sure that the batteries and everything are completely at full percentage for this trip. But I actually have a backpack, which that is where my clothes are going to be, and then I have a personal item backpack, which that is where I am going to be putting my camera gear in. So I am actually going to be backpacking in Europe, where I am just about finishing up packing, and very shortly I'm going to be getting these out to the car and then head our way to the airport. Alrighty guys, so it is a very busy afternoon here at O'Hare Airport. I just gone through security and it was really busy, but I kind of expected that with the way this afternoon's flight is going to be, because there are a lot of European carriers that are departing around the same time. So now I'm actually going to do some exploring around Terminal 5 as I have a little bit of extra time before I head back to the gate for this afternoon's flight. For the first time here at O'Hare, I am actually taking a flight out of Terminal 5, which is the international terminal here at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. I have actually been in this terminal before, but just didn't take a flight. I will say, as far as the terminal goes, it is not the greatest international terminal that I have witnessed, especially because other airports I have been to that are actually better. This is also where now Delta Airlines and Southwest Airlines do their operations as well. So it also contains some domestic flights as well. And after getting through security, I ended up doing some walking around the airport and getting a meal of Chinese food, while then after that doing a little bit of plane spotting around the airport. And sure enough, not long after I finished my meal, the British Airways 787 Dreamliner just arrived from London Heathrow and was pulling up right to the gate, where after everyone got off the plane, boarding ended up beginning. And with this happening, it is time to get on the plane and head our way across the Atlantic as we head to London Heathrow. And so it begins as we have officially taken off and now headed our way across the Atlantic. To start things off, got a very nice view of downtown Chicago as we began to head our way over Lake Michigan, and it was just a very nice afternoon it was to fly. Couldn't get much better than what it was the day that I ended up taking off with this happening. After a little bit though, there was actually some Canadian wildfires that ended up affecting the air, so because of that, below it was actually a bit hazy with that happening. After I got settled in with the flight was actually when the first snack and drink came, where for this afternoon I had a bag of pretzels followed by a glass of apple juice, where I enjoyed that as I was continuing to look out of the window. As far as where I was sitting at for this flight, I will say for British Airways standards, this was actually a very comfortable seat that I was in overall, and more comfortable than most of the other flights that I have experienced. And also, as well, unlike other flights, I was provided with a pillow and also, as well, a blanket, which was very good for me to use later on in the flight as it was nighttime later down the road. But very glad that the airline was able to provide this. And also, with all this happening, I also took a look at the flight map, and sure enough, in this clip, we were right over Detroit, Michigan, and headed into the province of Ontario, where a little bit later down the road, we would go through Ontario and head up towards the area of Nova Scotia, and at night over Greenland before heading our way into the European continent in the early morning. As the flight continued to fly over Ontario, it actually got pretty interesting to see what there was that was around, as there were quite a number of some of these islands that looked like from the air where there was a lot of water around. So with that happening, there were quite a number of lakes that were around, and we were literally flying right along the Canadian border, where we eventually hit a little bit of the mountains up near the northeast region, up near Vermont and New York and New Hampshire. So with that, it became a pretty interesting sight to see, and was just quite a bit different than what I would have anticipated compared to flying over other parts of the country. And also up here, it was just so green as well, which I did not expect it at all. I was also surprised to see how many windmills there were, because when we were flying over this part of the continent, it seemed like the number of windmills that I ended up seeing was just absolutely endless. It was definitely more than what I normally see even in my home state of Iowa. But with seeing that, it just felt so different being able to see everything in this region of the country, and it was just a beautiful view outside of the window. One thing that I really enjoy about flying is being able to see just the different landscapes and seeing just how different certain places are compared to others, as I have been able to travel around the United States and for this trip internationally now. So quite a different perspective of things compared to other areas that I have seen. Once it started getting towards dusk was actually when it was dinner time, and I will say this was a very good meal that I had in store for me, in which I decided to order the option of having some pasta, and man, did the pasta taste amazing. Some of the other things that I also got on this flight as well was a chocolate mousse, which tasted a lot like pudding. And then I believe this is dry fruit is what it is called. There was no label on it, but it tasted pretty decent, however. And a few other things such as like bread and also an apple juice as well. And I really took full advantage of this flight as it was starting to get nighttime, and that really filled up my stomach pretty well and was definitely the best meal I have had on a flight. After I was done eating dinner, it was actually starting to get dark because we were flying further east and we were over Nova Scotia when it was starting to become sunset. After that happening, I did end up deciding to take a look at the safety manual to see how different it was on this plane compared to others. And then after that, it just started becoming pitch blackness. And with that being said, I am going to turn off the camera and get some sleep before I wake up in the morning to finish up the flight. After I was done using the bathroom, I decided to stay in the back of the plane because I needed to stand for a little bit after sitting for a long time. But while that was happening, I decided to give you guys a clip of what it was like to see the cabin in the economy area in the back of the plane to give you an overview of what it was like. And also, as well, while I was back here, I tried sneaking around to see what it was that it was going to be for breakfast pretty shortly. But after I was done stretching out, I went back to my seat and it already was starting to get just past dawn. And right when it was around sunrise was actually when our breakfast ended up coming. Where for this morning that I was on the flight, I had a egg sandwich followed by a cup of apple juice, which honestly tasted really good. And I enjoyed this as I was watching the sun continue to rise as we were starting to fly over the European continent. And we started things off by flying over Ireland and then eventually cruising our way into England. Unfortunately, when we flew over Ireland, it was very cloudy below, so I did not get to see much of what the Irish landscape was like. However, though, when we entered into England, I did not see much of it upon entering at first, but what I will say is the moment I saw England, I knew that it was going to be quite amazing to see, as first impressions was that I noticed there were quite some differences compared to any place I've seen in the United States, which made me really excited with starting this European trip. And also seeing what the English countryside is like. In a few moments, with all of this happening, we will actually begin our descent into London Heathrow. So in the meantime, I'm gonna just sit back and enjoy seeing the English countryside before we arrive into London Heathrow. After spending 7.5 hours up in the air, I was very excited the moment the plane landed. And with my first impressions of London Heathrow, I was quite shocked with how many big airplanes there were, as this airport was just absolutely massive. And overall, I will say my first experience on British Airways, it was for the most part good for the flight itself. However, though, when we ended up landing, though, the gate that we were at was actually in a gate where we needed to get on a bus to get to the terminal. And that, I would say, is my biggest complaint with this flight, was when we were at the gate, because we had to wait about an hour inside of the airplane after we landed because they were short-staffed on buses. And with that, they needed to scramble around the airport to get to our gate in that. And I really think they should have been able to get a bus when we ended up landing. And that's something that I kind of did not like about that. But compared to the overall flight, though, that was the only big issue that I have seen. And I heard from some people saying that that kind of happens a lot at Heathrow. I don't know how it is for other flights, but since this was my first experience on them. But overall, though, it was a pretty solid flight, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And if you guys stick around to this long, thank you very much for watching. And consider liking, commenting, and subscribing if you guys are interested in seeing some more videos from the channel. Until then, this is Trevor the Aviator from London Heathrow International Airport, where I will see you guys at the airport again very shortly.